Hello and welcome to round 11 of the Pecking Order Show, a show where we talk Australian football through the lens of the TPO rankings. You can think of it like the FIFA World Rankings, but for Australian football clubs. I'm joined by Jake this evening. It's Jake's birthday today. Happy birthday, Jake.
Thank you, Cody. Good to be here. Staying up late and
on
talking
your birthday
football.
Of all things.
Yeah, well, what else would you rather be doing?
Oh, a few things.
I can't think of a single one.
All right, we'll press on then. By the way, Jake, you didn't mention I've got a nice Caloundra FC scarf on this evening.
Yes, very nice.
Yeah, cool. Well, anyway, last week we talked predicted league tables for New South Wales NPL, Western Australia and South Australian NPLs. Looked at where the teams will finish up come end of the year, according to us, according to the TPO ranking system and predictions and probabilities. This week we've got three more leagues. We're looking at Tasmania, ACT and Northern New South Wales. Jake, have we got that right, those three leagues?
Yeah, that sounds right. And for those that you haven't mentioned, they were covered a few weeks before that as well. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
yep.
So you can go back and look for those if that's what you're after.
Absolutely. But first, we had four games. Let's get into the recap. So I had my two games first. I'll run through them. They're up on the board here, guys. We, as always, we get you to vote on Instagram stories. We have a probability or a prediction who we think will win. We put it over to you and count your votes too. So let's see how we went this week. Marconi Stallions versus Rockdale City Suns. Now we predicted a Rockdale City Suns. 75% of you guys went for Marconi. It was the only game we were different on this week. And Marconi got up 2-1. So well done, TBO supporters. You get one up on us there. Now, Marconi are up 2 spots in the rankings to 38th. Rockdale down 3 spots to 27th and out of the top 25. See you later, Rockdale, for now anyway. My second game here was in the Western Australian NPL. It was Balcatta at home to Cockburn City. Now, we predicted a Cockburn City win, as did the supporters. 70% of you guys voted Cockburn City. So it looks like... Yeah, the result, was 4-2 to Cockburn. So we both got that one right. Well done. Jake, where are these two teams sort of fared in the rankings?
So Balcatta on the back of this loss, and also they lost in the FFA Cup through the week to Armidale, also in the NPL over there.
Yep.
So the combination of those two losses means that they've fallen 9 spots on the rankings. They're down to 147th. Cockburn are actually down 8 places, even though they won this game that we're talking about, because they actually lost an FFA Cup game as well. But their loss was to Guelph, Croatia, who's actually in the division below the NPL, so it was a bit of an upset over there. So the points they lost in that game were more than the points they won from beating Balcatta. So Cockburn are at 88th on the rankings now. Okay.
Jake, over to your two games.
Yeah, okay. So I started off in Victorian NPL 2, and we had the kind of the East versus West leagues there, Altona Magic and Dandenong. So Altona Magic was top of the NPL 2 West, and Dandenong City top of the NPL 2 East in Victoria. Altona won this one 3-1, and our rankings, our predictions had a Dandenong City win, and 69% of the supporters also picked Dandenong City, so we both got this one wrong. And on the back of that, Dandenong City down 5 spots on the rankings. They're in 73rd. Altona Magic up another 6, and we seem to be saying it every single week. They just keep shooting up the rankings, and they're up to 127th. And like we said, they're closing in on that top 100, and if they keep winning, it won't be long till they get there.
Yep.
And then my second one was the Northern New South Wales NPL, Edgeworth Eagles and Charlestown City Blues. We predicted Edgeworth. 78% of the supporters predicted Edgeworth, and actually just looking at those numbers, our prediction was 77% Edgeworth, and like I said, you guys 78, so it was pretty close in the end. It was actually a 1-1 draw, so this is one of those ones that we scrap. We'll take that off the list. Neither of us got a point for that one. Edgeworth, because they were the clear favourites, lost some ground on the TPO rankings. They're still in 24th. They've dropped some TPO points. Charlestown City continue to climb up the rankings, and they're up, even though it was only a draw, another 5 places, and they are now 79th. So
cool.
Yeah, those are the games.
As you mentioned, Jake, that game was a draw, so yeah, it is scrapped. So instead of 4 games, we only count 3. Now we got 1 out of 3. The supporters 2 out of 3, so he caught one up this week. So that takes the TPO supporters to 18 on the running ladder on the leaderboard, and we're on 19, 1 point ahead. Yeah, good stuff, guys. So Jake, despite those 4 games, there's obviously a bunch of other games around the country. Any other movements in the rankings you'd like to talk about at the moment?
There's a couple, and a couple that are worth mentioning that I won't, just because we're about to cover them in a minute when we look at the leagues to date. But Western Pride is probably the one near the top. They've, from the Queensland NPL, moved into the top 25 rankings, and up into 23rd to be exact. And like we just mentioned before, Rockdale City Suns are the team to have dropped out of the top 25. And for the first time this season, we've got 2 clubs from Queensland in that top echelon, and the other one being Brisbane Strikers. Mm-hmm. The other thing to mention, I guess I pulled out, the biggest movers up the rankings over the last 7 days was Forestfield United from the WA NPL. They beat ECU Joondalup, who are near the top of the WA NPL at the moment. They beat them 6-1, so that was it's just seeing Forestfield win that one, I would have thought is an upset, let alone a scoreline like that. And then they also had a midweek FFA Cup win against Joondalup United 4-1. So combination of those wins meant that Forestfield are up 21 places on the rankings, so up to 95th, so a very big jump. And in the opposite direction, the biggest movers down the ladder were West Adelaide from South Australia, and they're down 8 spots to 51st after a loss in the FFA Cup and then another loss at home in the South Australian NPL. So not a great week for West Adelaide. And they're probably the biggest ones.
Yep. Thank you for that, Jake. Okay, segment 2, part 2 of the show, predicted league tables. Hopefully you know what this is all about, guys. If not, go back and watch last week's for a bit of an introduction. But yeah, let's just jump right into Tasmania. Jake, you're going to take us through this, so let's get into it.
All right, so what we'll get up is a bit of an image that lots of numbers and colours and whatnot going on, but essentially what we're trying to talk about is where or how many points each of the clubs has so far in the league, and then what our simulations predict they'll finish on based on the rankings, based on the remaining fixtures and who each team have played and that sort of thing. So Tasmania's 5 rounds in, so still pretty early, less than or about a quarter of the way through the season. We've got Hobart Zebras in first place at the moment and Launceston City just behind them. South Hobart are struggling, probably is a pretty simple way to put it there. They're on 5 points, and Hobart Zebras out in front on 12, so a 7-point difference already after 5 rounds. But South Hobart have been so dominant over the last few years that their TPO ranking is quite high, so they're predicted based on that to make up a lot of that ground. And what we're seeing at the moment is Hobart Zebras favourite for the premiership, but Hobart Zebras, South Hobart and Devonport City are all predicted to finish within about 1 point of each other. So very close at the moment. And if you look at the probability of who will be crowned the premier, we're talking about a difference of Devonport's 30% chance of winning it, South Hobart 34 and Hobart Zebras 37. So it is very close. Probably the biggest, maybe this is not the right way to put it, but overperformers based on the ranking. So who's picked up a lot of points despite being lower on the TPO rankings? It's Devonport City and Launceston City at the moment, and they're currently in 2nd and 3rd. And if you talk about the underperformers, like we mentioned, it's South Hobart at the moment. And I won't spoil it, but there's an interesting game coming up this weekend in Tasmania, which I think, Cody, you might have picked as one of your games of the week. So I'll leave that for now, and we'll get back to that in a minute.
Cool.
So yeah, that's Tasmania. And actually, I'll just mention the other end, Clarence United struggling. They're winless. They picked up a draw over the weekend to get their first point, but predicted to finish well off the pace there. And they've come into the league this year. They were in the tier below last year and replaced, I think it was Glenorchy Knights were in there and struggled, and it looks like Clarence United are having a rough time of it as well.
Okay, what's the next league, Jake?
Next up, Northern New South Wales, and we've got 7 rounds there have been played, although most of the clubs have only played 6 games because they've got 11 clubs, so there's a bye in there.
Sure.
What have we got? Charlestown City Blues out in front at the moment, but Maitland and Edgeworth Eagles, who are both only 3 points behind, they have a game in hand, and if they win, their goal difference is a lot better, it's a little bit better, so they'll actually move ahead of Charlestown.
And Broadmeadow Magic are also on 13 points as well, I think.
Yeah, but they've actually, I think, played the same number of games.
Okay.
So they are actually a game behind or a win behind.
Yep.
Maitland and Edgeworth, as I say, are the two clubs kind of with that game in hand chasing them, but those two teams play each other this weekend. So I guess one of them will obviously at least drop points and that game in hand will probably not catch them up to Charlestown, but we'll see what happens there. Just looking across the other things that I think are worth mentioning or that look interesting, Landon Jaffers started with 2 wins and a draw against some of the quality teams or the top end of the teams. But since then they've really slipped, and I don't know that they've picked up another win since then. A couple of draws maybe, but no more wins. And they're actually a little bit off the pace now. And like you said, Broadmeadow Magic are in there, but they've dropped points to Landon Jaffers and Edgeworth Eagles already. So I guess the reason that's important is because they don't have those clubs to pick up points later in this or until the second round of the season when they start playing those teams again.
Yep.
Edgeworth are the favourites to win the premiership, like we said, and they're the highest ranked club in Northern New South Wales in the top 25. And what else? I guess looking at the rankings and how clubs are going so far, the underperforming teams are probably Hamilton Olympic a little bit, maybe Landon Jaffers, although early days. And overperforming at the moment would have to be Charlestown City Blues and possibly even the Newcastle Jets youth team.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's Northern New South Wales from my point of view.
Yeah, brilliant. And all right, last one. Let's head over to the ACT.
Yep. So again, this one's still reasonably early. We're 5 rounds in the ACT, but there's some clubs that have only played 4, and even 1 or 2 that's only played 3 games. So it's kind of hard to really get a feel for this one at this stage. The only unbeaten club that's left is Canberra FC, but they've only played 3 games. Despite that, they're in second place, so they're well positioned, I guess, given where we're at in the season. Tuggeranong is in first place, and they actually had their first loss over the weekend to Canberra Olympic, and Canberra Olympic are slowly gaining ground. They're pretty close now, and they're the highest ranked club in ACT, so they're ranked 47th and favourites for the premiership at the moment. Canberra FC, with, like I just said, they've only played 3, so with that game in hand, they're predicted to come in second and be the closest challenger, and they're actually ranked 77th. So there's about a 30 rank gap between those top 2 clubs at the moment. Performers this year so far would have to be probably Balcatta United and maybe even Cooma FC or Tigers FC. And the overperformers, or the teams that are doing really well despite a low ranking, Tuggeranong obviously, and possibly, it's hard to say, but Riverina Rhinos, they've picked up a couple of wins despite being ranked very, very low. So maybe that's a good start for them.
Cool. How good's that? 3 leagues, predicted league tables. If you've got any questions about that, guys, leave them in the comments. If you'd like to see any other leagues that maybe we can feature those in a couple of weeks' time as well. Let things play out a little bit. There's probably a couple of leagues we haven't touched on, Jake. I think that's the second league.
Yeah, so that's probably it for the MPLs. We could probably go down into the second tier. And to be honest, it was probably 5 weeks ago now we first looked at Queensland and Victoria. So it might be time to start looking back there again as well.
Yeah, maybe in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, any questions, guys? Let us know. Let's. We're doing really well with time today, Jake. Let's keep going. Get you to bed early for your birthday. Part 3. Final segment of the show, we're going to preview a few games for this weekend and get your votes on in Instagram stories as always. I'm going to start A-League Grand Final. We don't cover a lot of A-League on this show just because everyone else does A-League. It's got enough of a support base, but I can't go past the final. Newcastle Jets at home to the Victory. Newcastle Jets are ranked in at 5th. Melbourne ranked in at 2nd. Victory going as favourites. But I don't know. I'm backing the Jets in front of a home fan. And Jake, didn't you messaged me earlier and said the Jets are Melbourne Victory's bogey team?
Yeah, that's right. Maybe less so in the last season. I guess Victory have probably pulled it back a little bit, but across, if you were to look at all of the A-League teams, the one that Victory has struggled against the most over the period that our database covers, it's been the Jets, and they haven't beaten the Jets in Newcastle for, I'm not sure how many games, but it's been a long time.
There you go. So yeah, that should be a good one, and looking forward to that A-League Grand Final. Hope it's an entertaining game, as entertaining as those two semis were on the weekend. That was great. Okay, my second game, as you alluded to earlier, Jake, is in Tasmania. So we've got Devonport City versus Launceston City. Devonport ranked in at 75th, Launceston 158. So big gap there, but top of the table clash here. Despite sitting, I think, first, Launceston are still playing catch up in the rankings. So they are heavy favourites to lose. They're up 13 spots in the last 30 days on the rankings, and Devonport are up 9 spots in the last 30. So they're two teams doing well, but obviously Devonport are heavy favourites. There's 69.2% probability of winning. I wouldn't rule Launceston out though. So Jake, what are your games? How many you got this week?
Oh,
Just the two?
I kept it to 2.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm doing well. I
Cool.
had more, but I was going to go the A-League Grand Final as well, and you picked it, so you gave me a bit of leeway.
Good stuff.
I've picked 2 from the same league this year, and
you can't do that.
No, I don't care. I didn't see that written anywhere, so I did it. And that's the Western Australian NPL, and this is one that's just, we've mentioned it before. I've never even visited Perth or the West Coast, so we don't know a lot about these clubs other than what we're kind of reading and seeing from over, a lot of the reports. And obviously, as part of the TPO rankings, we've been able to cover it a bit more. But this league, just from even looking at it on paper, it's just delivering in terms of competitiveness. Last week we mentioned there was 5 clubs, all 1 point or separated by 1 point at the top of the table. That's still the case, 1 or 2 points now, and clubs that are up there seem to be dropping points against the lower ranked clubs at the moment, and no one seems to want to run away with it. So I've gone there for 2 big games this week. The first one is Cockburn City and versus Perth Glory Youth Team. We've got 2 clubs that are predicted to finish 5th. That's Cockburn and 4th, Perth Glory. And it's a top 4 finals, so it's potentially a pretty important game in the race for that final spot. Perth Glory, one of the biggest movers up the rankings this year so far, and Cockburn predicted to just miss out on the finals by very small margins. So if they are going to make the finals, these are the sort of games they need to be winning. So yeah, this is where was it? Cockburn ranked 88th, Perth Glory ranked 81st. So very
pretty close in the rankings.
Yeah, and Perth Glory youth team are the favourites for this one slightly. So 42% chance of winning, and Cockburn 35. So that's the first one.
I have a feeling, Jake, that the supporters will vote for Cockburn City here. I have a sneaky suspicion that they'll jump on that bandwagon. So I think we'll differ there.
All right, that'll be interesting. To be honest, I don't know which way I'd vote. It's a close game. Perth Glory were looking great up until, well, they still are, but they've dropped points the last few weeks. So maybe they're starting to see some cracks. And then my other one is ECU Joondalup and Perth Soccer Club. So ECU Joondalup ranked 63rd, Perth 30th, and currently the highest ranked club in WA. ECU Joondalup predicted to finish 3rd, Perth predicted to finish 1st, so they're very close there. What have I got to say? Perth are slight favourites for the premiership at the moment, but like we said, it's very close, and they have dropped points the last few weeks. I think they had a draw and a loss in the last 3 weeks, so no one really wants to take the opportunity where other clubs are dropping points and run away with it. It's just one of those interesting ones. And ECU Joondalup, despite being near the top of the table, they were the club we mentioned earlier that lost to Forestfield United 6-1. Big upset there. So, they'll be looking to bounce back, and the odds favour Perth quite heavily, 57%, and ECU Joondalup 23%, but I think it'll be a pretty close game.
No, looking forward to that one too. Well, that's it, guys. Bloody hell, that was a quick show. How good is that? I love this. Makes my job a lot easier, editing and uploading. Excellent. Well, Jake, happy birthday again.
Thank you, Cody. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Guys, questions, let us know. Feedback, let us know. We're all over social media too much these days, but we're going to keep it up and probably get even more and more on all the channels. We're even starting up on Snapchat. Would you believe it? Who would have thought? Anyways, if you want to grab those stats, the stats pack as well, we email that out each Wednesday morning prior to the show. We get all these sorts of stats and visual representations of the data. That's free as always. You can sign up on our website on the footer. You just enter your email. Otherwise, guys, hit us up on social. If you've got any questions, say hello, whatever it is. If you want some stats for your club as well, we put together some pre-match stats, which you can share on your social media sites too. So a few clubs took us up on that offer last week, and they come out really good. So thank you very much to those who did reach out. Jake, anything else from you this week?
No, nothing from me. I think you've got it all covered.
Legend. All right, we'll see you next week, guys, in round 12 of the Pecking Order Show. We're getting on now. See you next week.
Bye.